Commander Zixthara stood 12 feet tall in the center of the observation deck. Her crystalline body caught the light from distant stars and split it into rainbow patterns across the metal walls. She was perfect, just like every member of her race. The Veiltar had made themselves perfect over thousands of years. The galaxy belonged to them. Every world, every species, every living thing followed their rules. They called it the Great Cultivation. It was their gift to the universe, order where there had been chaos, purpose where there had been confusion. Zixthara looked at the star map floating in front of her. 43 star systems, hundreds of worlds, billions of creatures, all organized and improved by Veiltar wisdom. Worker species mined metals and grew food. Warrior species fought wars and kept peace. Scholar species ran governments and schools. Everything had its place. "Commander," said her assistant, Colven. His voice was calm and musical, like all Veiltar voices. "We have found something strange." "Strange?" Zixthara turned her head. Strange things did not exist in Veiltar space. Everything was planned, controlled, perfected. "Explain." Zixthader, Asnan Wan. Zixthader, Indesen. Colvin touched the control panel with his long fingers. The star map changed. A new system appeared at the edge of their territory. Scouts have found a new species. They call themselves humans. Zixthara studied the data. The species was young, perhaps only a few thousand years of civilization. They should be primitive, barely able to make fire. But the scanner readings showed something impossible. "They have faster-than-light travel," she said slowly. "Without our guidance?" We? "Yes, Commander. And they have spread to multiple worlds. 7 colonies, all connected by regular trade and communication." This made no sense. The Veiltar had studied evolution for 10,000 years. Species developed in predictable ways. First, they learned to control fire and make tools. Then, they built cities and formed governments. Finally, they reached for the stars. But it always took guidance. The Veiltar would arrive at just the right moment, when a species was ready, but not too advanced. They would offer wisdom, genetic improvements, and purpose. Every species accepted. Every species was grateful. "Show me their home world," Zixthara commanded. The display changed again. A blue and green planet appeared, covered in swirling white clouds. Continents and oceans. Cities that sparkled with electric light. Ships moving between the planet and its single moon. "Population?" she asked. 8 billion on the home world. Perhaps 2 billion more spread across their colonies. Zixthara felt something she rarely experienced. Confusion. This was all wrong. No species had ever advanced so far without Veiltar help. It violated the natural order of the universe. "What is their genetic structure?" she asked. Colvin hesitated. "That is the strange part, Commander. They have no clear genetic castes. Some are stronger, some are smarter, some are more artistic, but there is no pattern. They seem to be random. Random." The word made Zixthara's perfect mind recoil. Randomness was chaos. Chaos was waste. The Veiltar had spent millennia eliminating randomness from life. Their government structure? She tried. Multiple competing governments. Some ruled by single leaders, others by groups, still others by popular vote. They often disagree, and sometimes fight each other. This was getting worse. No species could function with competing governments. The Veiltar had learned this truth long ago. One voice, one vision, one purpose. This was the only way to build a lasting civilization. Their military capabilities? Colvin brought up new data. Ships of different sizes and designs filled the screen. Some were sleek and fast, others heavy and powerful. The designs made no sense. They looked like they came from dozens of different civilizations, not one unified species. They appear to have various military doctrines, Colvin explained. Some favor direct assault. Others prefer stealth and ambush. Some use advanced energy weapons. Others rely on kinetic projectiles. There is no unified approach. Zeexthera stared at the data for a long moment. This species violated everything the Veiltar knew about civilization. They were chaotic, random, unguided. Yet somehow they had achieved interstellar flight and built a growing empire. It should not be possible. Commander, Colvin said quietly, the High Council is requesting your assessment. Zeexthera straightened to her full height. The High Council would expect answers, recommendations, and results. They would not want to hear about impossible anomalies. Prepare a cultivation fleet, she commanded. Standard pacification force. We will bring order to this chaos. What classification should we assign them? Zeexthera thought about this. Every species had to fit into the great cultivation: worker, warrior, scholar, or disposal. Looking at the human data, she could not decide where they belonged. We will determine their proper role after initial contact, she said. Ready the ships. We depart in 6 cycles. As Colvin left to prepare the fleet, Zeexthera remained alone with the human data. She studied their cities, their ships, their chaotic variety. Deep in her perfect mind, a small doubt began to form. What if they refused cultivation? She dismissed the thought immediately. No species had ever refused. Every race in the galaxy understood that the Veiltar way was the right way. These humans would be no different. They would see the benefits of genetic optimization, social organization, and purposeful existence. They would be grateful for Veiltar guidance. They would take their assigned place in the great cultivation. Everything would proceed according to plan, just as it always had. The doubt remained, small but persistent, like a crack in perfect crystal. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ENS Defiance and watched the alien fleet approach. 36 ships, all identical, moving in perfect formation. They looked like crystal spears cutting through space, beautiful and deadly. Ma'am, called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communication station. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Same message, repeating. Let's hear it, Chen said. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A musical voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded somehow artificial. Attention. Human species. We are the Veiltar, guardians of biological order in this galaxy. You will cease all military activities and prepare for classification under the Great Cultivation. Resistance is inefficient and will be corrected. The message repeated. Chen felt her jaw tighten. She had been an admiral for 15 years, had fought in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. First contact with an alien species, and they were already making demands. Response, Admiral? Asked Commander Park, her first officer. Chen keyed the communication system. Unknown alien vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. We thank you for your introduction, but we must respectfully decline your offer. Earth and her colonies are sovereign territories. The alien fleet stopped moving. For several minutes, there was only silence. Then the musical voice returned. But it sounded confused. You decline cultivation? This is not possible. All species accept improvement. What exactly do you mean by cultivation? Chen asked. We will study your genetics and assign your species an appropriate role in galactic civilization. Your random biological development will be corrected. Your chaotic social systems will be organized. You will find purpose under our guidance. Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew came from 6 different nations and 3 different colonies. Lieutenant Rodriguez was from Mexico. Commander Park was Korean American. Dr. Williams, their science officer, had been born on Mars colony. Ensign Okafor was from the African Federation. They were different colors, spoke different languages at home, worshipped different gods. But they all served together. And they all chose to be here. And if we refuse? Chen asked. Another long pause. Refusal is not part of our protocols. No species has ever refused cultivation. Well, Chen said, there's a first time for everything. The answer is no. The alien fleet began moving again, spreading into an attack formation. Chen had seen this pattern before. It was designed to surround and capture, not destroy. All ships. She broadcast to the human fleet. They don't want to kill us. They want to capture us. Use that. The battle began with light. The aliens fired beams of energy that should have disabled human ships instantly. But Earth's engineers had learned from fighting each other for centuries. Every human ship had different shield designs, different armor, different power systems. The alien formation was perfect, mathematical, predictable. The human response was chaos. Captain Martinez of the CNS Bolivar charged straight at the alien flagship, firing everything he had. Captain O'Brien, of the HMS Triumph, retreated behind the moon, then emerged shooting from an unexpected angle. The African ship Ubuntu launched fighters that moved in swarms, while the Japanese vessel Akira used stealth technology to appear and disappear randomly. Chen watched the battle unfold and felt a fierce pride. This was humanity at its best. Not because they were coordinated, but because they weren't. Every ship fought its own way, but they all fought for the same thing, the right to remain free. The aliens began making mistakes. Their perfect formation broke apart as they tried to respond to attacks from 12 different directions, using 12 different strategies. They had expected one enemy with one plan. Instead, they faced a dozen enemies with a dozen plans. Admiral, called Dr. Williams from the science station. I'm reading massive confusion in their communication networks. They're trying to coordinate responses to tactics they don't understand. Chen smiled grimly. Rodriguez, get me a line to the alien commander. The connection opened. The musical voice was strained now, no longer perfectly calm. Why do you fight without coordination? Your tactics make no logical sense. Because we're not all the same, Chen replied. We don't think the same, we don't fight the same, and we don't want to be the same. But this is inefficient. Unity brings strength. Does it? Chen gestured to the tactical display. 3 alien ships were already disabled, their crews captured by human boarding parties. Because from where I'm sitting, your unity looks pretty weak right now. The alien commander, Chen assumed it was a commander, was quiet for a long moment. This cannot be. Our models predict all possible combat scenarios. Maybe your models are wrong, Chen said. Maybe forcing everyone into the same pattern isn't as strong as you think. The aliens began to retreat. Their perfect formation reformed as they pulled back toward the edge of the solar system. But Chen could see the damage was done. They had come expecting easy victory and instead found something they couldn't understand. A species that grew stronger through diversity, not weaker. Admiral, called the communications officer. The alien commander wants to speak with you again. Put it through. The musical voice was different now. Uncertain. We do not understand your species. You should not be able to function with such chaos. It's not chaos, Chen said. It's choice. Every person on my ships chose to be here. Every captain chose their own tactics. Every colony chose to fight for Earth, even though Earth is not their home. Choice. The word sounded strange in the alien's musical tone, like it was trying to pronounce something in a foreign language. The right to decide for yourself what you want to be, instead of having someone else decide for you. The alien fleet continued its retreat, but Chen knew this wasn't over. She had seen the confusion in their tactics, heard the uncertainty in their commander's voice. Humanity had shown them something they had never encountered before. The question was, what would they do about it? All ships, Chen broadcast. Stand down to yellow alert. Send rescue teams to disabled alien vessels. Let's show them what else choice can accomplish. All? Chen? All? The news traveled faster than light through Veiltar space. On 1,000 worlds, in 100 cultivation centers, the impossible truth spread in whispers and secret transmissions. A species had said no. Elder Quindara, oldest of the Veiltar High Council, stared at the battle reports with confusion that hurt her ancient mind. In 10,000 years of rule, this had never happened. Species always accepted cultivation. They always saw the wisdom in Veiltar guidance. How many ships did we lose? She asked. 7 disabled, 3 destroyed, reported the military coordinator. But Elder, the losses are not important. The humans captured our crews. And then, released them. Quindara's crystalline features shifted in surprise. Released them? They provided medical treatment for injuries and returned them unharmed. They said it was their way of showing respect for prisoners of war. This made even less sense. Victorious species either enslaved the defeated or incorporated them into their armies. They did not heal enemies and set them free. What purpose did such behavior serve? Meanwhile, across human space, the colonies were mobilizing. The call had gone out from Earth, and the response revealed humanity's strange strength. On Sparta Colony, General Hassan watched his troops board transport ships. These were hard people, shaped by life on a harsh world where only the strong survived. They had built a society based on military discipline and personal honor. "Sir," asked Colonel Torres, "why are we helping Earth?" "They've got soft policies, weak leadership." Hassan checked his weapon one more time. "Because if those crystal bastards can control Earth, they can control us too. And I'll be damned if anyone tells me how to live." On New Detroit, Admiral Kim supervised the loading of massive industrial ships. Her people were builders, engineers, workers who had turned 3 barren asteroids into the galaxy's greatest manufacturing center. "We're not soldiers," her assistant worried. "What can we do against aliens?" No. Kim smiled grimly. "We can outbuild them. Every ship they destroy, we'll make 2 more. Every weapon they break, we'll design a better one. They want to control life? Let them try to control human stubbornness." Dr. Elena Vasquez watched from the science vessel Discovery as the relief fleet gathered. Ships from dozens of human worlds, all different, all volunteering to fight for Earth's freedom. The Spartan ships were angular and aggressive, built for warfare. New Detroit's vessels were blocky and practical, designed to carry massive amounts of supplies. The academic coalition sent sleek research ships loaded with scientists and new technologies. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "What's beautiful about a war fleet?" asked her research partner, Dr. Petrov. "Look at them," Elena said, gesturing to the display. 30 different designs from 30 different colonies, but they're all here for the same reason. Not because someone ordered them to come, but because they chose to. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the front lines. But they weren't the only ones moving through the galaxy that day. On the mining world of Keth Ara, something unprecedented was happening. The Keth Ari workers, genetically modified for life in deep space, were talking. They had heard whispers of the human rebellion, transmitted through secret channels by sympathetic slaves on other worlds. Foreman Beltash tried to maintain order. "Return to your duties." These rumors served no purpose. But worker Hintal, whose body had been stretched and altered for work in zero gravity, asked a question that had never been asked before. "What if we don't want to mine anymore?" The question spread through the workforce like fire. Other voices joined in. "What if we want to see the sky again? What if we want to choose our own jobs? What if we want to choose our own jobs? What if we want to be what we used to be?" Beltash called for Veiltar security. But the guards were facing similar problems on a dozen other worlds. Everywhere, the enslaved species were asking the same dangerous questions. Back in human space, the first joint battle took place near the Centauri system. Admiral Chen's forces had linked up with the relief fleet, creating a massive but chaotic armada. When the Veiltar arrived with their largest fleet yet, they expected to face the same random tactics as before. Instead, they found something new. The humans had learned. They still fought with individual styles, but now they coordinated those styles. Spartan ships charged in direct assault, while new Detroit vessels provided covering fire. Academic ships used new weapons, designed by studying captured Veiltar technology. But the real surprise came when the battle was nearly over. A small fleet of strange ships arrived, vessels that looked like modified mining equipment, flying in formations that hurt to look at. Unknown ships. Chen broadcast. Identify yourselves. The response came in a voice that was definitely not human, but was speaking perfect English. Admiral Chen. This is Free Captain Hin Tal of the Keth Ari Liberation Fleet. We've come to fight alongside you. Chen stared at the tactical display. The newcomers were former slaves, flying ships they had rebuilt from mining equipment, joining a battle for freedom they had never experienced. The battle ended in complete human victory. More importantly, it ended with representatives from 6 different enslaved species asking to join the human alliance. Dr. Vasquez found herself in the strange position of conducting first contact with refugees instead of conquerors. The liberated aliens came in all shapes and sizes, but they all shared the same expression: hope, mixed with fear. We don't know how to be free, admitted Hintal. His elongated body shook with emotion. For 1,000 generations, we have been miners. Before that, we were something else. We have forgotten what. Then you'll figure it out as you go, Elena said. That's what freedom means. The right to make mistakes and learn from them. The refugees looked confused. But who will tell us what to do? You will, Elena smiled. You'll decide together. You'll argue, disagree, maybe even fight sometimes. But you'll choose. Meanwhile, in Veiltar space, Elder Quindara faced the greatest crisis in her civilization's history. The human rebellion was spreading. Enslaved species were breaking free across the galaxy. Worst of all, young Veiltar were beginning to ask questions about their own society. Why do we have the right to control other species? Asked student Velmara during a philosophy lesson. The teacher, Instructor Golteth, felt his perfect mind stumble. Because we are more evolved. We understand the proper order of life. But who decided what the proper order should be? Velmara persisted. It was a question with no answer, and that terrified every Veiltar who heard it. The war had been going on for 6 months when Captain Maria Santos received the most important mission in human history. She stood in the briefing room aboard the battle station New Horizon, looking at faces from a dozen different species. The target is the Genesis Complex, announced General Hassan. The Spartan leader had become the Alliance's chief military strategist, his harsh world breeding the kind of tactical mind they needed. It's where the Veiltar conduct their genetic modification programs. Dr. Vasquez activated the holographic display. The Genesis Complex hung in space like a crystal flower, beautiful and terrible. Thousands of ships docked at its many arms, bringing cargo that made Santos sick to think about. Every year, they process millions of beings through that facility, Elena explained. They take children from enslaved species, alter their genetics, and turn them into whatever the Veiltar need. Captain Hintal, whose own body bore the scars of such modification, spoke in a voice tight with rage. My people used to build cities among the stars. They turned us into living mining tools. Santos studied the tactical data. The Genesis complex was heavily defended, surrounded by automated weapon platforms and protected by the Veiltar's most elite forces. Getting inside would be nearly impossible. Getting out alive would be even harder. "What's our objective once we're inside?" she asked. "Rescue as many prisoners as possible," Hassan said. "But more importantly, we need to document everything. Show the galaxy what the Veiltar really are." The mission launched 3 days later. Santos led a strike force of 12 ships, each one different, each carrying volunteers from the Alliance species. They used a new tactic, developed by Dr. Petrov, quantum masking that made their ships look like scheduled supply vessels. Getting to the complex was the easy part. Once they were inside, Santos saw hell. The modification chambers stretched for kilometers in every direction. Thousands of beings lay unconscious in crystal tanks, while machines rewrote their genetic code. Children went in one end, looking like one species, and came out the other end as something completely different. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Park, Santos's second in command. "How many?" "Millions," said Dr. Vasquez, reading the facility computers. "They've been doing this for 10,000 years. The rescue operation began immediately. Santos's teams spread throughout the complex, freeing prisoners and gathering evidence. But they quickly discovered something that changed everything. In the deepest levels of the facility, they found the HFY historical archives. Dr. Vasquez downloaded the data with shaking hands. "Maria, you need to see this." The holographic display showed the HFY homeworld as it had been 1,000 years ago. Cities that reached toward the sky, ships that danced between planets, art and music, and literature that rivaled anything humanity had ever created. "They weren't primitives when the Veiltar found them," Elena whispered. "They were a full, spacefaring civilization." Captain Hintal stared at the images of his people's lost glory. His modified body trembled as he saw what the HFY had been before the Veiltar improved them. "We had universities," he said, his voice breaking. "We had art, music, poetry. We explored the galaxy out of curiosity, not because someone ordered us to mine it." The archives revealed the truth about dozens of species. The Torval had been master engineers before they were turned into mindless factory workers. The Yexti had been philosophers and teachers before they were modified to become soldiers. Every enslaved species in the galaxy had once been free, advanced, and unique. The Veiltar hadn't been cultivating primitive species. They had been destroying civilizations. "We have to get this information out," Santos said. "Every being in the galaxy needs to see this." But their mission was interrupted by alarms screaming throughout the complex. Commander Zeekthara's voice echoed from every speaker, no longer musical but harsh with anger. "Human intruders, you will surrender immediately. Your actions serve no logical purpose." Santos keyed her communicator. "The purpose is pretty simple. We're here to free people. You have no right to enslave." We have every right," Zeekthara replied. "We brought order to chaos, purpose to randomness. These species were inefficient before we improved them." "Improved?" Santos looked at the modification chambers around her. "You destroyed entire civilizations." "We eliminated waste," Zeekthara said, but her voice wavered slightly. "These species serve proper functions now." Santos had an idea. "Zeekthara, I want to show you something." She transmitted the HFY historical files directly to Zeekthara's ship. For a long moment, there was silence. Then Zeekthara spoke again, and her voice was different, uncertain. "This data must be corrupted. The HFY were never capable of such achievements." "Look at it," Santos insisted. "Really look at it. You didn't improve them. You broke them." More silence. Santos could imagine the perfect Veiltar mind, trying to process information that contradicted everything it had been taught to believe. Meanwhile, the rescue teams had freed thousands of prisoners. Ships began launching from the complex's docking bays, carrying liberated beings back to Alliance space. But the Veiltar defense fleet was closing in, and Santos knew they couldn't hold out much longer. That's when the impossible happened. Zixthara's flagship, instead of joining the attack, moved to protect the fleeing rescue ships. Zixthara, Santos called. What are you doing? The Veiltar commander's response was barely a whisper. I am seeing my people as others see us. For the first time in my life, we are not gardeners. We are destroyers. The revelation broke something fundamental in Zixthara's mind. For the first time in Veiltar history, one of their commanders had questioned not just a tactic or strategy, but the entire foundation of their civilization. Other Veiltar ships began to waver. Some continued the attack, but others hung back, their crews struggling with doubt. The perfect unity that had been their strength became their weakness as individual Veiltar began to think for themselves. Santos's strike force escaped with their rescued prisoners and historical data. But they carried something more valuable. Proof that even the Veiltar could change when confronted with the truth about their actions. The war was about to enter its final phase. But it would be decided not by weapons, but by the power of doubt to shatter even the most perfect certainty. The Veiltar High Council gathered in emergency session as their empire collapsed around them. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species were breaking free. Worse, young Veiltar were refusing their assigned duties, asking questions that had no answers. Elder Quindara, her crystalline form showing cracks of stress, called for order. We must activate the extinction protocol. If we cannot control these chaotic species, we must eliminate them before they spread their madness further. The other elders agreed. Across Veiltar space, ancient weapons systems powered up. Planet killers that had been built at the dawn of their empire, designed to destroy entire worlds if cultivation failed. But as the weapons charged, a new voice interrupted their council. I request permission to address the High Council. The elders turned in shock. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in their sacred chamber, alone and unarmed. Around her, projection fields showed representatives from every liberated species in the galaxy. How did you get here? Quindara demanded. Commander Zixthara brought me, Elena replied calmly. She thought it was time you heard a different perspective. Zixthara stepped from the shadows, her perfect form somehow diminished. Elders, I have seen what we truly are. Dr. Vasquez wishes to debate our right to rule. The very concept of debate was alien to the Veiltar. For 10,000 years, their word had been absolute law. But Quindara found herself curious about this strange human who dared enter their most sacred space. Speak, she commanded. Elena stepped forward, her small human form dwarfed by the towering aliens around her. You claim authority over all life in this galaxy. I'm here to ask a simple question. Who gave you that authority? We took it, Quindara replied immediately. We are the most evolved species. It is our natural right. Says who? The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Quindara felt her ancient mind struggle with the concept. Says evolution. Says logic. Says the natural order of the universe. But who decided what the natural order should be? Elena pressed. Who wrote the law that says advanced species get to control primitive ones? It is self-evident, another elder interjected. The strong guide, the weak. The intelligent, direct. The simple. Elena nodded thoughtfully. So, if I found a species more advanced than yours, more intelligent, more evolved, they would have the right to enslave you? The suggestion was so shocking that several elders stepped backward. That is impossible, Quindara said. We are the pinnacle of evolution. Are you? Elena activated a holographic display showing the Liberation War. Because from where I stand, it looks like you're losing to a bunch of chaotic primitives who refuse to follow your perfect plans. The images showed battle after battle where human unpredictability had defeated Veiltar precision. They showed freed slaves building new societies based on choice rather than genetic programming. They showed former enemies working together by mutual agreement instead of forced compliance. Your way creates order, Elena continued. But it also creates stagnation. When you force every species into predetermined roles, you stop them from growing, changing, becoming something new. Elder Velnoth, youngest of the council, spoke hesitantly. But without guidance, they will make mistakes. They will choose wrongly. Yes, Elena agreed. They will. We humans make mistakes all the time. We fight each other. We disagree. We sometimes choose poorly. But we also grow from those mistakes. We learn. We adapt. We become better. That is inefficient, Quindara protested. Is it? Elena gestured to the display again. Your efficient empire is collapsing. Our inefficient alliance is growing stronger every day. Maybe perfect efficiency isn't as valuable as you think. The debate continued for hours. For the first time in their history, the Veiltar found their fundamental beliefs challenged by logic they couldn't refute. Worse, young Veiltar throughout their empire were listening to the transmission, hearing arguments that made sense. Finally, Elder Quindara asked the question that terrified her most. If we are wrong, if our way is not the only way, then what is our purpose? Elena's response was gentle. The same purpose as every other species in the galaxy. To choose what you want to become. You don't need someone else to tell you what your purpose is. You can decide for yourself. The concept broke something fundamental in Veiltar society. For 10,000 years, they had defined themselves by their role as galactic gardeners. Without that role, who were they? Some elders rejected the idea completely. They activated their planet killers and prepared to destroy Earth and every liberated world. But others hesitated. If humans were right, if forced evolution was wrong, then destroying them would be the greatest crime in galactic history. The Veiltar Empire split in half. Those who couldn't accept change fought to the bitter end, their perfect weapons destroying their own ships as much as enemy ones. Others laid down their arms and asked the same question Zixithara had asked. How do you live without knowing your purpose? The war ended not with a final battle, but with a philosophical revolution. Across the galaxy, beings who had been told what to be for generations suddenly faced the terrifying freedom of choice. Dr. Vasquez found herself in the strangest job in human history, teaching former masters how to be free. The process was difficult. Many Veiltar couldn't handle the uncertainty and retreated to isolated worlds. Others embraced the chaos of choice with enthusiasm that worried their neighbors. But slowly, painfully, beautifully, the galaxy began to change. The Kethari rebuilt their cities, mixing their ancient architectural styles with new designs inspired by contact with other species. The Torval started engineering projects for artistic beauty rather than mere function. Former slave species and former master species worked together on projects neither could have imagined alone. It wasn't perfect. There were conflicts, disagreements, even small wars, as species learned to negotiate rather than submit. But there was also something the galaxy had never seen before: growth without limit, change without control, evolution guided by choice rather than authority. 5 years after the war ended, Zixithara visited Earth. She found Dr. Vasquez in a small laboratory, working on a project to help former genetic modifications reverse their changes if they chose to. How do you stand it? Zixithara asked. The uncertainty, the chaos, never knowing if you're making the right choice? Elena looked up from her work and smiled. That's what makes it interesting. Every day, we get to decide who we want to be. Some days we get it right. Some days we don't. But it's always our choice. Zixithara was quiet for a moment. I have been thinking about returning to my homeworld. Some of my people want to try building a society based on individual choice, rather than collective purpose. That sounds wonderful, Elena said. What will you do if you go back? I don't know, Zixthara admitted. For the first time in my life, I truly don't know what comes next. Elena's smile grew wider. Welcome to freedom. Outside the laboratory window, ships from dozens of species moved through Earth's sky. Each vessel was unique, representing the choices of its creators. The galaxy had become a place where life could evolve in any direction it chose, where authority came from consent rather than power, where the future was written by every being brave enough to make their own choices. It was chaotic, inefficient, and sometimes painful. It was also alive in a way it had never been before. And humanity, with all their flaws and contradictions and stubborn refusal to be told what to do, had shown the galaxy that life itself resisted any attempt to impose final authority over its infinite potential for growth and change.